Now, we are going to deal with one small section of the Gita, the Sthita Prajna part of the Gita. I think it's a very, very important section of the Gita. And I just don't want to stick to the traditional chanting and understanding of it, but apply it to daily life. This chapter, this part called Sthita Prajna in Sankhya Yoga, starting with sloka 54 up to the end of that chapter, is a description of a Sthita Prajna. Sthita Prajna means one whose consciousness or state of mind, let us say, consciousness is too big a word, whose state of mind has become balanced, is steady and unruffled and yet active. He's not talking about a sannyasin who is sitting in the mountain or the cave. He's talking about a person who is living in this world. If you live in the cave, you cannot understand anything really. I mean, you can go for short periods, like you go to a resort and try to sum up and look at yourself and work out something, but you really know where you stand only when you are in society and in communication with other people. So he is referring to that, not to somebody who is sitting far away in the cave. Now, this is the 54th sloka. For a change, it is Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna asks something. Arjuna Uvacha. What does he ask Krishna? You have described everything. You have called me a fool and an idiot and all that, doesn't matter. You have told me that there are people who have understood the self and therefore are not like me. Now please describe to me, how do I find such a person? This is the question. And the actual words are Arjuna Uvacha Sthita Prajnasya ka bhasha Samadhistasya Keshava Sthitadi kim prabhaseta Kim asita vrajeta kim. Which means, O Keshava, O one of beautiful hair, O Keshava, Sthita Prajnasya, of a person whose wisdom, whose mind, whose consciousness has become sthita, steady, quiet, unruffled. Samadhistasya, one who has deep introspection, who through deep samadhi, through deep involvement, by delving deep into his own self, has come out with the understanding that deep down his self actually is unruffled. This distinction is important. That is why the word samadhistasya has been used. It's not as if one is trying to control the mind and make it quiet. It is that one, when goes to the core of one's consciousness, one discovers that the nature, the primal nature of the core of the mind is actually quietness. So, such a person. Ka bhasha. What is the description of such a person? How does such a person come across to me? Ka bhasha. How does he look? And what is the description of such a person? Sthita dhi. Dhi means wisdom, mind, intelligence. So, a man of sthita dhi, that means one whose dhi or wisdom has become absolutely quiet and steady. Kim prabhaseta. How does he speak? Does he speak like us? Or is there some other different way in which he speaks? Kim prabhaseta. Kim asita. How does he sit? Asit. Which means It's not a description of how he sits, whether he's sitting steadily or bent. It means how does he behave? Basically, that is the question. How does he speak? How does he behave? How do others see him? Kim Vrajeta, how does he walk? If you put everything together, O Keshava, what is the description of a person who has attained to steady wisdom and deep introspection? So this is the question that Arjuna is asking Krishna. Then begins again Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Krishna says, now I shall describe to you. If you still haven't seen, I have been going around with you for so long. If you still haven't seen, let me describe to you. Believe me, this is something that happens everywhere. It is actually so difficult to find out a person of steady wisdom that sometimes you live with one and you don't know. So this is a very important question. And the problem is compounded by the fact that the real Sthita Prajna perhaps doesn't utilize any propaganda machinery to project himself. So you don't know. He may be living as a next door neighbor, you won't discover. Unless he throws everything into your house, then he is not a Sthita Prajna. Okay. Now what does Krishna reply? Sri Bhagavan Vacha. He says, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmani eva atmana tushtaha Sthita prajnastad uchyate. Partha means, O son of Pritha, Partha. Yada, when. Manogatan, contained in the mind. I will combine it. Let me go word by word. Contained in the mind. Sarvan kaman, all desires. Prajahati, lets go of. Yada, when. Atmana, by the Atman. Atmaneva, in the Atman only. Tushtaha, satisfied. Tada, then. Sthita Prajna, a man of steady wisdom. Uchyate, one is spoken of as. To put it together, O son of Pritha, O Partha, when all the desires of the heart have been understood, and when all the desires of the heart have been let go of, I am not using the word abandoned, and the spirit, the self, finds joyous satisfaction in itself without any external adjuncts, then is one spoken of as a person of steady wisdom. So, let's get this straight. When a person's mind is steady, if he is a Sthita Prajna, certainly his steadiness and wisdom are not dependent on external circumstances. Not dependent. I won't say that he is running away from external circumstances. Not dependent upon external circumstances, because if they were dependent on external circumstances, he cannot be Sthita. Today everything is fine. Tomorrow there is some problem. So then my mind fluctuates. Apart from material problems, what we generally have are mind problems, ego problems. I think that I am a wise man. I might even think I am a Sthita Prajna and so on. And then I go out and somebody comes and knocks his scooter into my car, and all my Sthita Prajna is gone. I roll down the glass and shout at him. He gives me a slap and calls me a bloody fool. So what happens to my Sthita Prajna at that time? Gone. There is no Sthita, because I am dependent on external circumstances for my steadiness, which is not Sthita Prajna. I am dependent, I have created an image for myself, and I don't want anybody even to make a small dent in that image. Now, a person of wisdom in the first place does not create that image. If you don't make that bubble, who is going to burst it? Why? Because independent of external circumstances, there is an element in each one of us. It's not confined to Krishna or Arjuna or this man or that man, every one of us. There is an eternal element in all of us which is by its very nature joyous. It does not have to depend on anything external. It doesn't have someone to tell you, oh, you are a great man. You're very happy if somebody says you are a great man. If somebody says you are a fool, I'm not. So this is not the state of Sthita Prajna. So one who enjoys his own self in himself without depending on what others say or what happens in the outside world, such a person is called a man of steady wisdom. Please don't mistake the Gita. They say man of steady wisdom, it also means woman of steady wisdom. So, this is something to be examined very carefully. The Vedantic description in the Upanishads of the Supreme Being is Sat Chit Ananda. Sat Chit and Ananda. That means the truth. Sat means the truth. Simply because everything else has to end at some point, and that which is here today and gone tomorrow cannot be the truth, cannot be the reality. It is real when it is here, but when it is gone, it is no more real. One. Even if it is here, I am gone, so it is not real to me. So anything that is there which is outside that definition is Sat. That which is there forever, whether I am there or not there, whether the house remains or is destroyed, it is there. Therefore, it's called Sat. Essence of all living beings is also Sat. Chit means it is not Jada, which means it is not material, but it is of the essence of consciousness. It is conscious, Chit. And the last is Ananda. It is because of this that we have happiness. Although we think that we are making happiness, it is merely because of the presence of this Supreme Reality in us that we are happy when happiness happens. So it is Sat-Chit Ananda. But when it applies to the Supreme Being, it's not the ordinary happiness that we are accustomed to, although that is also a release of a small dose of that from the Supreme Being. And every living being who seeks happiness in the outside world is really seeking this indirectly. That's why there is an instinct in all living beings to seek happiness, because one's very essence and nature is that happiness. We don't know it. One touches something within which is of by its very essence, nature, bliss and happiness. And when that happens, then one lives a quiet and balanced life, not being hit and thrown by the different monsoons that keep changing. This is not to say that one should leave it and run away anywhere. There is no running away anywhere. You can't escape anywhere now. Wherever you go, there is something happening, you're caught. So, better that you stay where you are and try to find that essence in oneself which keeps our mind steady and quiet and immovable. So Krishna says to Arjuna, when all the desires of the heart have been let go of. Now, what does that mean? That means, see, all desires are towards happiness. Now, to say that I must not become happy, that is quite illogical and unstable to say that. What happens here is that one finds that true happiness is within and not without. And therefore, one gives more importance to the inner journey than to the outer. Therefore, one goes within and finds out that there is an ever new source, perennial source of happiness within. When this happens, one finds satisfaction in oneself, independent of outside factors. The corollary to it, the byproduct of this is, you would also like to share that happiness with others. Because you don't lose anything else. You have money, you give somebody 1 lakh, you have lost 1 lakh. But here, you have this, you give 1 lakh and you gain 10. You don't lose anything. Because it is not a material object to be lost, it is your own nature. Here to remain in that state, when one remains, such a one is spoken of as a person of steady wisdom. It does not matter what he wears, it does not matter where he lives. I'm not saying that, trying to justify that somebody is living in luxury. I'm not saying that. But it really does not matter. You know the famous King Janaka, who is well known in the ancient scriptures. In Ramayana, Sita is supposed to be Janaka's daughter, and so on. There was the great sage Vyasa, who wanted his son Sukadeva, who is supposed to be a person who was more spiritually advanced than Vyasa himself, than the father. And yet, Vyasa tells him, if you want more spiritual guidance, go to such and such a person. Watch out, he doesn't send him to a rishi living somewhere in the forest. He says, go to Videha, the city of Videha. There is a great King Janaka living there. Perhaps he can guide.